Hello and welcome again to another piano video, and today I'm looking at the grade 4 A1 piece, Allegro Assai. So I'm going to play it for you straight away. You can hear how it sounds, and then we'll talk about how to go about learning it afterwards. I'm going to, as always, I check the tempo before we start. So that's the recommended tempo, 84. Personally, I quite like playing it slightly quicker, but I'm going to keep to that tempo for purposes of demonstration. Here we go. So it's a lovely, cheerful sounding piece, and what we're going to do to start with is we're going to look at the first two bars. We have this right hand followed by the left hand kind of answering it. So we need to make sure that's a nice, even rhythm. And both of those notes at the end, the G's, are like almost like staccato. Don't linger. You know, that's going to spoil the light feel of it. So it's quite a playful idea. However, the first note in the left hand is a crotchet, so be careful here. It's not a really short note, it's just, and then the next bit. So try to remember that sort of ba, ga, ga, ga rhythm to it. That's what's going on there. So first two bars, and as we do the next bar, the same sort of thing. Nice playful sort of sound. For the quavers, I'm tending to play them in a sort of semi-staccato way. It's got a nice bit of bounce to it. It's in keeping with the sort of Baroque style, although this is probably written in the classical period because this composer Benda was alive between 1722 and 1795, so he kind of crosses more into the classical period. But the early classical period in style is often influenced by the Baroque. So the bouncy quavers suit the music. You know, if you played it like this, it's just maybe a little bit too smooth. That seems to suit the style, and also there's no slurs over those notes to suggest to play them really legato. We get to bar, what do we get to? Bar 5, and this little idea. We can think of this in groups, the ones which have got the curved slurs there. So when you practice that, try to think of them in groups, coming off on the last note of each group. So on the first one, G, B, C, coming off. Then obviously G, C sharp, D. And then you get a nice kind of feel of, and of course it starts with the B. The fingering suggestion there is excellent, so do try and go with that, I think. Left hand here is just crotchets. And I don't see why we can't just play that reasonably smooth. So if we have a quick look at bar 7, what's coming up next is this. We have the slurs, and then semi-staccato quavers. And that will work well. As a general rule, all the way through the piece, semi-quavers can be thought of as legato, nice and smooth. So that rundown in bar 8 is a nice smooth sound. So bar 7, and the interplay between the two hands in bar 8. We want that to sound like one continuous scale. So if you're not one of these players that's particularly good at scales, just take your time practicing this and build up the speed gradually, and so on. And then of course we carry on from bar 9, it's exactly the same as the beginning. So remember that little detail about the left hand being held, and the same here. That's the sound you want. Bar 13 then, this is the point at which we can possibly drop in volume slightly. I don't know whether I really did that much when I played it to you earlier, but you could possibly drop the volume a little and build. So like, it sounds quite nice building it. It doesn't tell you to do that there, but it does feel quite nice. So just to explain the notation in bar 13, you have an appoggiatura written there. So that's the C to the B. Just treat it as semiquavers. So you end up with a group of 4 notes. And the same on the next group, C to D. That's all we're doing. And of course the same in the next bar. So it's just even groups, semiquaver, 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 biscuit. That's what I would think of it rhythmically as. The biscuit being the quavers in bar 14. So we have this. And then finally, more appoggiaturas. Semiquaver, semiquaver, T, and we're done. By the way, if you're watching me playing this, and sometimes I might be doing slightly different fingering, don't worry too much about that. I will sometimes play things slightly differently from what the suggestions are. That doesn't mean necessarily my ideas are any better, but quite often when you practice things, you'll notice there's often more than one way of playing something. So sometimes, that's okay to not always do the suggested fingering, as long as you can play it comfortably. So let's talk about the next section now. We're going from bar 17. The first thing we notice is, of course, it's gone from what was a loud section in the first part of the piece to soft. So we're coming from the loud to... So that's the first thing to be mindful of. Start it nice and soft. We also have the treble clef coming in there. So that's the G above middle C. So just be careful on that. And do remember that the previous section doesn't need to be repeated. So the repeat sign in bar 16 does not need to be implemented. You go straight through the piece, and even at the end of the piece you'll notice another repeat sign. You do not have to do that. If you've done exams before, you'll know that generally speaking in ABRSM exams you don't have to repeat unless it tells you to specifically in the footnotes. So we're going from bar 17, we're playing it soft. And of course that left hand part is just crotchets. Off. Make sure you notice the rests, because that's a nice bit for the right hand just to play the last part of it. Oops, too loud. So those last 2 quavers, we can hear them on their own. And the same here. So those last 2 notes, we can hear them on their own. Quite often when people learn pieces, they sort of ignore rests, but it's very good to make a habit of noticing them when you practice, and from the very early stages of learning it, trying to put that as part of your playing. Because otherwise you're rehearsing it the wrong way, aren't you? If you're always playing into the rests, you're not really playing it correctly. So that's that section, the opening part. We're going to play it one more time and we're going to continue. Suddenly it gets loud, doesn't it, there in bar 21. So it's going to be strong. And not much to say about it really, as long as you're reading it correctly. That shouldn't be too complex. Obviously the bass clef is coming in there as well in bar 21, so just keep an eye on that. So we're starting on the E above middle C there for that section, but it's only brief because there's that treble clef creeping in again in bar 24. And then we're doing a very similar tune at the bottom of page 1 on the last bar there, which is bar 25. it seems to have suddenly changed key. It sounds like it's in a new key now. In bar 27, that sign that looks like a bracket in the right hand part, it just means the left hand is going to play those three notes, which is actually a broken A major chord. E, C sharp, A. So the left hand part from bar 27 is actually this. That's the complete left hand part there. So we're playing the A, then the broken A major chord, and the same broken A major chord an octave lower. So you could practice that on its own. That's how you read that. So there's only one right hand bit to do in bar 27, which is that chord. So you literally have, if I play bar 26 and 27 really slowly so you can see what's going on. Let me do that again properly. It can be a bit disorientating actually, this, because when you've played the left hand D on bar 26, which is finger number 5, you've then got to move your left hand to a few notes down so the 5's over the A. So that's all you've got to practice. And once again, this next section, a bit like what we talked about earlier, could build slightly. Again, it's not written to crescendo there, but it just sounds quite natural to do it. And you'll have noticed, once again, my left hand is semi-bouncing. I quite like that, you know, I mean, you could play it smooth. Just like a bit of bounce. Oops. So going from bar 33, we're now going to go like this, nice and soft. But a good thing to practice would be the last couple of bars of the previous section we talked about earlier. So bar 31 and 32 loud, and then suddenly soft. Just to practice that transition. So once we finish that bit, very similar sequence here. Suddenly then we're forte. And we're back on the home ground, if you like. This is the final bit, which is very much like the beginning. So yeah, there's nothing to say about that last bit, is there? It's really the same as the beginning. So I hope my thoughts on it have helped you a little bit today, and good luck. I might see you around on one of the next videos I do. Take care for now then. Bye.